Good morning, everybody. Thank you for starting the day with me. Last weekend in church, as we continued the deep dive we're doing on Philippians 4:8, we focused on the phrase, whatever is noble. Noble. As Renee mentioned in his sermon, the Greek word for noble is difficult to translate into English. And I think, plus even in English, noble isn't a word we use a lot. There are some European countries who have a formal class of nobility, but here in the States, that word doesn't come up a lot in conversation. So to help me wrap my mind around noble, I did the thought exercise that Renee gave us all to do, to think of people in history, people I know, people in fiction, and biblical characters who exercise nobility. And it was interesting because as I looked at the names that I wrote down and pondered on their lives, I realized that all these people had something in common, and it's consistency. I didn't necessarily think of them as noble because of one giant moment in their lives, though many of them had that. I believe them to be noble because I see in them consistent choices to act in noble ways. And when I think of someone who's noble, who I knew personally, I think of a dear woman named Jeanette Kraft. Jeanette is now with Jesus, but in the decades I knew Jeanette, I only grew more in awe of, more humbled by her consistent, gracious, noble spirit. She endured some tough things in life, even in the time I knew her, but I saw her consistently choose graciousness. And I did see some big noble moments in her life, but what I mostly saw were small, noble moments. The choice in interactions with me, with others, to be gracious, to put others first, to serve in ways that often went unnoticed. Jeanette was a part of this group of people in my life who are a little further down the path than I am, but people who I watch and I think to myself, I want to be like them when I grow up. And I realized in this thought exercise that all those people are noble. They're not flashy. They're consistent, Jesus-loving, Jesus-serving people. And of course, when I think of Jesus, the ultimate example of noble, I see in him consistency, consistently choosing sacrifice, consistently choosing grace for me over and over and over again. Now, I know I certainly can't be as consistent as the perfect Son of God, and neither can you. Sorry to burst your bubble at 7 a.m. But in Jesus, we have the perfect example, and we see what motivated him. And the same thing can motivate us to make noble choices. The Apostle Paul summarizes it this way in Ephesians 5:1-2, saying, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children of God. Walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God." Want to live a noble life? Choose to walk in the way of love, to follow the example of Jesus, and rejoice, knowing that your nobility isn't your identity. Your identity is that as a deeply loved child of God who's following God's example, walking in the way of love, the noble way. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in church this weekend.